Okay, I'd like to call to order the City of Monona Sustainability Committee. Today is Thursday, August 1st, 2024. And Thor, do you have the roll?
Got the roll?
And we have quorum.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was July 11th, 2024?
For such a motion.
Motion from Tim, a second from Alder Bernstein. Any changes, additions, anything that people want to correct? Hearing none, all in favor of approving those minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to appear? I don't believe we do. Great, so we're gonna move on to item 5, unfinished business. So we got 3 things under here. We'll start with the budget and then, actually, Thor, why don't you just give us a little update on.
Yeah, so
that.
we have about $1,150 remaining in this year's budget. Any unused funds are not going to be rolling over this year, so if we don't spend it, we will lose it.
That's the big message.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind for the decision making, the rest of the year, marketing materials or programs. We have about 1,200 to spend. And likely at our next meeting, we'll have on the agenda our proposal for the 2025 operating budget. Generally, all we've included on that is, a line item for our marketing materials and a line item for the electronics recycling event for $1,000 or so for the past few years. So we can do that. There's a couple other options or opportunities that I'll mention later on in the agenda that we can also discuss. Any questions?
Yeah, it's
Is this an action item?
It's
No action item,
No.
just an update, really.
it's just kind of lousy. Hey.
Kristen.
See you, Kristen. It's just one of those moments where you think, geez, government. Like if we don't spend it, we lose the money. That just seems like not the right incentive,
Obviously new, we've got 1,150 left, and who we start with last year.
2,000.
So,
We're not a big spendy.
Yeah,
yeah.
typically about 1,000 that we've spent.
But so if we want to do electronics recycling event again, that's what, 6, 3?
350 last year.
50, okay.
And typically spend, yeah.
Or, bookmarks, handouts, we make, stickers, the Don't Be Salty stickers. We've got some items that we'll talk about coming up later in the agenda. In fact, but any questions in general about how the budget works? So we would propose a budget, it would go to city council. It would be approved or not by council. That's kind of how that works.
And that's
And-
later in the fall.
That's later in the fall and, but August is the time when we start thinking about budgets. And, yeah. Okay, so I'll just move on to number 5B, update on the 2024 Nomo May, Slow-Mo Summer and Pollinator Habitat Project. The only thing really, and thank you, Thor, very much. If you've noticed on the agenda, Thor put little references back to the Green Tier Legacy Community items, which is just something that we always want to be thinking of, because that's really our sustainability plan. So any work that we do, we want to make sure that we are justifying the choice of that project because it fulfills some reporting. And the thing to say here is just that Thor's going to be updating the city website just so that instead of focusing on Nomo May, we really lead with the pollinator stuff. Nomo May being a strategy, not the whole program. I don't know about that. Do you?
I'll just say
The
that,
signs of the.
yeah, Tim, why don't you?
Yeah.
well, you guys crafted, forget it, was Ashley who, did the design of 2 new signs for that library gardens. And printed off and I plopped them in Broadway Gardens just this week.
Cool.
So you can see them.
Hello.
Yeah, and then the natural lawn ordinance, so that will be on the agenda for a first read at the city council August 19th meeting. The first meeting in August just got too full with some economic development items that are taking priority. And I've been working with the city attorney. There was during the approvals, the committee had recommended that we added some additional language about residents making their best effort to prevent invasive species. He felt like we already had a clause in there that disallowed invasive species that were listed on the state, the DNR's list, which is pretty comprehensive. And he felt like no additional language was necessary, and if we get into language like best effort to prevent, it just it's unenforceable. So he recommended that there's no change needed. The goal of the committee from that motion has already been satisfied in the language, so there won't be any changes as it goes to council. The committee know that.
Related to that, do we anticipate action and approval on that in time such that that could be something we could spend some money on, would be some signs for this fall?
Yeah, definitely. So it requires 2 reads at council, so I would expect it would be approved in September. Maybe not at the first meeting in September, unfortunately, because I will be out of town during that meeting, so it might have to be, if I'm there to present, it'd have to be the second meeting in September for the second read at council. But then it would be live, so we could start all the marketing then, we could get ready for next year with yard signs, certainly. Yeah.
So thinking ahead, then we're gonna need some sort of a design on what we would like that to look like, what we wanted to say. It's really just sort of a way to recognize those that are already doing this, right?
Yeah. I also want to let the committee know, I saw there was a WPR article about the city of Appleton and their No Mow May effort. They kind of kicked off the idea of No Mow May across the state. And there's an article about them moving on to slow mo summer. That they and a couple other communities have actually repealed their No Mow May
Oh, wow.
ordinance. Mostly for aesthetic reasons. So I'll share that article with the committee. I just came across it today. I thought it was interesting and relevant.
Yeah, it's funny how that all went. But as Thor works to update the website, No Mow May is still going to be like one of the strategies listed there. If we could just take a moment to list out some other strategies, I just listed ways that people can increase pollinator habitat. No Mow May / slow mo summer, rain gardens, native plants. We can talk about the ordinance. We can talk about flowering lawns. Rick mentioned trees for bees. And we can also talk about the Bee and Butterfly Brigade. If you can think of any other strategies residents can apply to increase pollinator habitat, let Thor know about that. And then 5C, discussion and possible action on resident tree buying program. So what has happened since we last met is that Tim and Ken volunteered to sort of be our citizen or committee volunteers, and as well as Rick. And then Thor realized that if Rick was part of it, then we'd have too many people and we risk a walking quorum, so Rick had to step away. So we, Thor and I and these two, we met with a representative of the Cambridge Tree Project that Rick met. It's one of Rick's neighbors, and we just sort of learned about a different approach that a community could take. So when we met with Jake Anderson, he shared with us an approach that was mostly city-driven, but supported by volunteers. In Cambridge, it's volunteer-driven. It's really just the passion project of some citizens who are not employees or elected or anything. They're just really cool passionate about tree people. And they planted over 1,000 trees in a few, I mean, they just really went at it and knocked it out of the park. So we learned how that works and sort of thought about it a little bit. Thor ran the idea past Jake, and there was sort of a lukewarm reception, the concern being that it might work great, but there's always a risk that there's like this sustainability, you know, if citizens lose their passion. So to keep it going, the preference would be to really institutionalize it as part of a formal city program, which I think is great. I put together a proposal just today, shared it with Tim and Ken and Thor and sent it off to Jake. Jake's on vacation, so we'll learn what he thinks about that. The idea is that it would be, I think I said this, city driven but volunteer supported. Perhaps we would have parks, and I believe we talked about this last time a bit. Parks would residents would purchase their trees from parks at a buy in bulk discount. Parks would bring the trees to Monona. In the spring, the trees would be ordered the previous autumn. So let's say you order this fall, you get the tree next spring and put it in the ground next spring. The trees would be smaller trees, come in canisters. They don't need any city equipment to transport them or put them in the ground. So all of these are some of the decisions we kind of had to work out. Residents can use just garden spades to get them in the ground. They can haul them in the back of their vehicles to their homes. Or the residents could enlist the help of maybe some volunteers from the sustainability committee if the residents would need assistance in any way to get the tree there or put it in the ground. Parks would conduct a site assessment, help the resident pick the tree. There'd be a list of trees to choose from, which would be vetted by the city forester, just to ensure biodiversity. And the resident would be responsible for part of the cost, not all of the cost. That final decision is not yet made. The average tree would be about $300. Maybe the resident would be on the hook for nothing more than 50% of that cost. And we, the committee, in addition to providing some volunteer help if needed, we would also be the ones to really do the marketing and promotion and education, creating handouts, creating web content, social media content, maybe even a how-to video, you know, maybe get community media to take a video and create some educational materials. So all of that is sort of before Jake right now for his blessing. I'm pretty confident that it's going to be happening in one way or another. I don't think, I mean, it was he who approached us, right? So so then really the next step is assuming that this is going to happen in one way or the other. We're going to need to think about how we can run a small pilot program this autumn with the intention of getting some lessons learned so that next autumn we can just really full tilt roll it out. So a pilot program means anywhere between 10 and 25 trees ordered this autumn, planted next spring. We would also be piloting you know, materials and things like that. So Tim and Ken and Thor and I can always work out details between the meetings, but of course during the meetings is a great time for other folks to chime in and share your ideas for what you think might work or how you might be interested in helping along on the side. We can always bring in citizens too to help as well. I know sometimes you get extended a bit on this committee, so we don't want to ask too much. So far so good. Does that sound okay? Yeah.
So how do you select? Who's gonna get the tree?
So in the proposal, I just said everybody's eligible. Oh, you mean, well, I guess it would be the first people that sign up.
Okay,
Is that what you mean?
First come, first
First
served.
come, yeah.
so you're gonna put a small bulletin kind of.
That's part of the pilot, isn't it? Yeah.
That
Yeah,
Okay,
It'd be a good problem if we have too many applicants.
yeah,
But you're right, we'll have to give some thought if, you know, how we're gonna select,
yeah.
yeah, but. Quite there yet.
I don't think there would be a limit, like if we suddenly just had 100 people want a tree, I don't think that would be a problem.
Cause then it's just based on the ordering.
Jake
Well,
just orders 100 trees.
well,
yeah.
but the city would be supplementing
Right,
the hundred
there's
fifty
the,
bucks.
there's the money, there's the money thing, yeah.
So it'd be,
Unless Parks just has it in their budget, who knows, yeah, we don't know.
so that'll be I think that'll be a question, what's the upper tier that they're willing
okay,
to fund?
so
and-
there wouldn't be any money from the committee, it would be between the,
We don't know,
well,
oh,
by-
Yeah.
that's one of the
by more
decisions to
trees,
make.
so.
okay. We were talking about using what money we had left.
Yeah, right, I know. I mean, one financial argument is that, you know, you list out all the benefits that urban trees provide for free. And when you think about how it is perhaps the most low cost and yet still the most effective way to really do something about getting carbon out of the air and back into the soil. You could argue, and when you have residents paying half of the cost to increase your tree canopy. When you think of it that way, I think it's a nice, I think it's a strong argument. A tree on my private property or a tree in the park is still a tree contributing to the canopy.
Yeah. And you-
If it's in the
did you-
park, the city pays 100%. If it's in my yard, I pay half,
Did you say the price point was around 300?
300 a tree, yeah,
So the resident pays half of that.
perhaps. I'm just, and for that, they get a bigger tree than they could have purchased.
Oh, really? Okay,
Somewhere else, and they
Okay.
get sort of like this buy and bulk discount, it's the quality is good. The
okay,
species is vetted by the forester,
Okay.
so that we're not all planting ash trees, right? You get assistance in planning, you get site assessment, you get convenient, you get drop off, you can deliver the tree, we could even help them plant it, so you get a lot for that cost, yeah.
well, if it doesn't cost us anything, then just what's the cap? Why do we need a cap at all?
Do you mean if it doesn't cost the sustainability committee
Yeah.
anything?
What's
Well, it
the,
might cost parks something. Parks might have a cap.
okay,
I don't know.
okay, we'll see what they're willing.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
workload essentially.
I
So
just have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, just, so whatever the decided financial cap is for splitting the cost, would this program continue to run beyond that, but it would be residents paying the full cost, or would it just cut off that, given those extra services are rolled in? Did that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but let's just say that we want to, let's just say we set a goal that we want to plant 1,000 trees in the next 5 years. Right, so that's $3,000 if each tree is like 300.
10 times 300 is 1,000. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I was thinking, yeah,
So
Okay,
it'd be $6,000.
mathematical wizard.
$6,000 a year we'd be asking from parks, you know, if that didn't
Yeah.
achieve that.
Yeah, so
10 trees?
20 trees a year would be,
Oh, 20, yeah,
would be,
right.
1,005, yeah,
or actually it would split, so it'd be 150 a tree.
Yeah.
So 20 trees a year, so you said,
mhm,
or you said 1,000 trees,
in 5 years.
oh, so 200 trees. 200 trees a year, times 100, that'd be $30,000 a year of parks fee. Plus finding 200 residents per year.
All right, 1,000 trees in 10 years.
All right, let's do that.
I don't know, we can see, I mean, see
Yeah.
how much, yeah, I think the question is, you know, how much
Right,
can parks?
Yeah.
Give us, and then you decide, do we wanna supplement at 50%, 150 per tree,
Yeah.
or do we wanna supplement 80% or 100%
Right.
with less trees?
we don't know.
But really the question is how much money do we have to play with?
Exactly,
You could even imagine some scenario where you're asking people to self-select some income bracket that they're in, and some of them, when we talk about DEI and trying to get things a little bit more equitable for some, you know, do we supplement some of them at 80%, and for people who live more affluent lifestyle, do they,
Yeah.
you know, like get a 20% break?
What would you
We're getting ahead of
recommend?
ourselves, but
How would we find that out?
I think it'd
Who'd
be
have to
self-selected.
self-select,
I think you
yeah.
just trust, you know, ask,
Yeah.
check a
Yeah.
box on our system. I mean, it's a
Yeah, yeah.
tree, you know, it's, you know.
It's not gonna be a bad thing if we put a tree somewhere,
Right, right.
it'd be bad wherever it goes.
I wonder, what if there was a financial threshold for it, which would probably correlate with areas that don't have much canopy in the first place?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was. Yeah,
Right.
seeking to achieve, basically, right?
Yeah, and to just simplify, if we just like had a line, like anyone below this.
Yeah, the question is, how do we verify that someone living in an apartment in a less affluent neighborhood actually makes it? I think we just,
Well, that,
we're getting ahead, we're getting ahead.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it could be something, a tool or mechanism to try to achieve some goals. You just kind of.
But these are some of the things that Jake was wondering about, like, does the sustainability committee have criteria?
right,
Yeah.
the tree canopy project or land at capital C cap, RC talks about census tracts and lists them in terms of economic profile. So there are certain regions of the city that are highlighted by that land as being trying to promote trees in that particular area. Because based on census tracts and the profile is lower.
Hmm. So, I'm sorry, Kristen, you had a question for us?
But well, my questions have kind of changed
Okay.
around, right? But kind of in tandem, we've had a number of developments going on in the city as well. Is there any discussion at all about offsetting trees that have been removed from these properties that they might sponsor replanting elsewhere? And to offset the loss of these trees?
Right.
I've seen that happen, and I just don't know if that's a conversation.
You mean like when a home owner
Like the
builds a new
multi-story,
house?
the
Oh, I think-
multi-story apartment buildings.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, so the plan commission generally asks for as many canopy trees as possible to be saved, and developers are usually incentivized to, because it is expensive to get rid of a canopy tree. And then there are landscaping standards based on the number of parking stalls, and including the number of canopy trees that they have to provide based on the number of parking stalls. I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but something like 1 canopy tree per 20 parking stalls or
Okay.
something. And then there's additional landscaping, smaller plantings that they have to install as well.
Some excellent.
Yeah, and that could be something to look at in the future, maybe we believe those should be amended, yeah.
And to the extent that maybe we could help to sponsor a tree in an area where trees might be prohibitively expensive for those who self-select, that they would like one, but it's going to be a hardship. That perhaps we can elevate our work as a function of the city by way of where we can put some trees.
Wow, I like that.
Some options to think about.
It is. So if there's money that we have that could go towards subsidizing it, if it's for people of a certain economic profile, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think the caution is you want to have people have some skin in the game, so they water the trees, take care of this.
Yeah.
Ken said over meetings, the most expensive part of the tree program is a dead tree.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Good point.
So we need to think about kind of how we can partner with, whoever might be requesting and in need, and what kind of criteria we would want to sponsor as a sponsor.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be tied to certain census tracts.
Census tracts or, This is property taxes, the city knows how much your house costs.
Yeah. But if you, yeah, that's true. It's true.
I mean, not that we want to police that, but a three-tiered system where people along the lake have to pay 80% of the cost and people, whatever, I'm just gonna spitball.
Yeah. I think we're getting somewhere,
There's a
moving in a
lot to
direction
think
there.
about.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways to put that together. But I think the intent is some kind of sliding scale of some sort.
Yeah.
So someone would learn about the program through one of our channels, communication channels. They would express an interest, and as part of expressing an interest, they would self-identify in some way that would let us sort of understand their ability, their financial ability. Parks would get that, submission, go out, do the site assessment, work with the folks to choose a tree. Or do we do that? Would we go out and work with the folks to choose a tree? I mean, this is all sort of the part of the pilot is working out these little details, right? So
You
just
want-
like,
You want someone who's really an expert in trees.
yeah,
So staff was,
right.
that would be perfect for them to do.
It would be, and we do have a city forester, but now you're talking about using up the
His time.
Salary.
city staff and his salary, and now it's a financial issue for the city and not as palatable for the council to approve.
Okay,
Whereas in Cambridge, purely volunteer driven and,
I mean, I think you asked for the moon, I mean, that's, he
Right.
said he wanted it to be
Right.
city driven, not
right,
volunteer driven, so if he wants that, then we ask for the forester staff time,
Yeah.
and we ask for.
If they say no, we can come up with like this.
I know, all right. I suppose we could also be on the lookout for folks, in our own circles who may be retired or people like Dave.
UW.
Yeah.
The forestry program at UW. Sure, I might be looking for.
is
Like
Ken on your
something.
committee, Ken Walls?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
so he
or Kansas State.
knows a certain amount, right?
Yeah. Or like people like Dave with the Cambridge Tree Project, I mean, he's
Yeah,
kind of motivated.
Or maybe we could ask businesses that are, arborist businesses to donate time.
oh, there you go,
Mhm.
get a nice little credit in our newsletter and stuff.
Because there could also be places for sponsorship, right?
I
Let's
know a
just,
couple arborists live,
Yeah.
businesses are based out of
no,
Monona.
okay,
That's a good idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
In one of our meetings, we talked about like, would parks provide mulch or root stimulator? And someone said, what about one of those gators that goes around the
The
tree? The bag, I mean,
Yeah.
right there, you could have just a prime opportunity for sponsorship with logos and things like that, A lot's to work out. I can see this becoming sort of like the main work of this committee.
It's a great thing
I mean,
to see a tree.
We
go
also
in the
have these
ground.
little
Yes.
programs off to the side, but I mean, one project to bring us all together would be kind of sweet too.
Yeah, I mean, the results are so obvious.
Yeah.
You can really point to something.
Yeah,
detailed.
and measure it. It's easy to measure, right? Exactly. And you can like calculate the carbon captured and.
What I
That's
liked
nice.
about the Cambridge project is they kept measuring the trees, so to see how well they did. And what the long-term impacts of those projects were.
Do you recall how long it took them to reach their goal? Because they set out to plant
They
1,000 trees.
decided to do it in 20, but they were a year early, so I think they did it in 19.
But they've already got 1,000 in the grounds.
Yeah,
That's nice.
so they have this huge palette of choices to use that
Also a bigger land base, don't they?
Cambridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000 trees in Cambridge footprint versus our little.
Oh, no, it'd be.
How many square miles are we here? I don't know, yeah.
Their population is about
About this,
1,000 to 2,000, I think. It's a very
1,000
small,
people?
yeah.
that live in
Wow,
village,
Village,
no.
yeah.
Really?
But
That's-
land wise.
Land wise, they've got the same, right, yeah,
that could be
yeah.
the bigger house lots.
All right, lots to talk about, but I know we've got these dedicated, you know, Ken and Tim on this work group, but of course, everybody really loved all the feedback. Thank you so much. All right, anything that you wanted to add, Jamie? I don't wanna make it difficult for you to, I know it's hard sometimes when you're joining remotely.
No, I appreciate that. I think
Okay.
this is a really exciting project. I think it's, my head is going in a million different directions. So I'm just,
I know.
no.
Yeah, so I think maybe just some of the things that we've talked about tonight, like if you know folks in your own circles who are arborists, you know, reach out to them. If you know people who know a thing or two about trees, reach out to them, see if they might be interested. Graphic artists, designers are always going to be needed as we move into like promotion and designing materials and educational materials. So just if you know people like that, they can help out. Speak to them, please. All right, moving on to number 6, new business, discussion and possible action on the 2024-25 leaf-free streets / adopt a storm drain project. So that really speaks to several items on the Green Tier Legacy program with water quality. And we've got some of those handouts. So what I understood from when I last spoke with Brad is that, so the handout that you're seeing here, this was created by Dane County and not us, right? And it's got these really sweet, it's just really well done. And you can sign up for alerts. Everybody's familiar with this, right? You know how this works. And you get an alert a day or two before it's gonna rain, and then you rush out and you get the leaves out of your street. And it's all about getting the leaves out of the street. Leaf-free streets. I was under the impression that Dane County, they have this leaf-free streets program, but they also had like an adopt a storm drain program at the Dane County level, which I get the impression, it's kind of like, I hear both sides of the story that they might be sort of sunsetting that program.
Oh,
As last year, Brad was thinking that we would just stop our homegrown program and join theirs. And then next we heard is, oh, they might be stopping theirs. So we don't know for sure what the status is on that. But our Monona only program was just this little blue and green bookmark that was put out a while ago. Excuse me, here I go again. My periodic scratchy throat. So I think there's just some feedback that we're still needing from the county to see where they're at. But otherwise, I don't know about you guys, but I think it's just great to just piggyback on what they've got going on already. I don't know that we necessarily need to recreate our own program. Any thoughts on that, or anything that, any support for having our own program or support for joining theirs?
So my understanding, just for clarification, that we already have a quasi program of
We
our
do.
own. Yeah,
We do.
because I reached out to Brad
Yeah.
to adopt a couple in my neighborhood. So what you're suggesting is like whether we drop that and try and join the county?
Yeah,
Okay.
because when you join the county, you get like on this website and it's kind of like actually, let's look it up actually.
Yeah, I think last year Brad was tentative because they might be sunsetting and just he liked our mapping abilities better. I think the one thing that the county does have an advantage with is those who have adopted a storm drain can report when they clean it. That's another data point to track, yeah.
how many do we have? I mean, in this 2019 report, it said like 19, I know it's more than that.
How many
Say
storm
folks have adopted
many
a storm drain.
adopters?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's, yeah, well,
50s?
well above that.
yeah, I don't know.
I can get stats for that for our next meeting.
So is that the rubric, is that the metric? For how well this program's doing?
Measure the number of adopters.
Yeah,
And this
Yeah.
is run through Brad, like it wouldn't be something that the sustainability committee would be taking on, it would be continue to be run.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so I should clarify, Brad manages our stormwater program.
Right.
He's the point person for, it's a regional partnership because we have a regional sewer system through the Metropolitan Sewage District. So MAM SWAP is the group, and the stormwater group. It's the Madison Area Metropolitan Stormwater Partnership thing. So Brad is the point person for that. There's education and outreach requirements as part of that, as part of our stormwater permit. And so really Brad is the decision maker for anything stormwater. In the past, the sustainability committee's role has just been, helping out with that education and outreach. But any significant decision like, leaving our Adopt a Storm Drain program for the county's Adopt a Storm Drain program, we can make recommendations, but ultimately it would be a decision from Brad, Public Works.
So what you're looking for is a recommendation from this committee for Brad?
I
Not
don't
yet, I
know.
think we have to, I think we have to get final feedback on whether the county is dropping their program.
Okay.
If the county is dropping their program, then we have no choice.
Have to
Our
continue
decision is
ourselves.
made
Yeah.
for us, yeah.
So,
Green is adopted.
I think so.
I got one.
Yeah, I'd say this agenda item is really, this is our fall project. Summer is wrapping up, just to get ahead of fall and start planning our priorities for this year and, if we want to change strategies at all. Or just, what outreach and education we would like to do.
I mean, I personally feel like storm drains are incredibly important, living in a lakeside community and the state of our lakes having so much blue-green algae issue. And most of our storm drains drain directly out to Lake Monona, so.
Mhm.
it
And
seems
it's
like it'd be
easy,
good.
it's a very accessible
Right,
kind of project. right?
It's
like,
easy to
it'd be nice
measure,
to
it's easy
know.
to, right?
yeah, it'd be nice to know like percent wise, like if we could have a metric that we're looking at like increasing all these reds to greens within the next. If we get to like 80% adoption rate in the next 5 years or something. Seems to me like that would be an easy advertising campaign to. Amp up and try and get more public notice on.
It would be nice to have metrics on how often they're clean. How does the county do that? Do they have an app that people use?
Yeah.
That's an ask, like to.
Exactly,
Have an
it's like a
app.
little, you can pull up their website, your phone, and then when you clean it, you can. But it says, yeah, that you cleaned it. I don't know what their response rate is, how many participants are at.
I mean, I get the emails from
Mhm.
Brad.
Yeah.
Storm alert coming
Yeah.
or whatever. If there was like a little individualized link, like, yep, I did it.
Yeah,
And you could, within Monona, publicize our top 10 storm drain cleaners in 2024, I mean, it's nice, there are some
Yeah.
nice aspects of owning.
yeah,
Get some data.
exactly, and I think that's kind of Brad's reason for holding back on joining the county, because he just had control over it. And plus, it just was uncertain whether the county was really gonna run with it or not. We'll find that out. We'll get the answer to that question. Last year, the campaign, the Adopt a Storm Drain campaign, Sarah Smith kind of ran with some of the graphics. It was hilarious. It was,
Rain?
here it comes.
Wow.
But the sidewalk
the
doesn't
wind?
look cool though.
Mm-mm.
Is it just raining on one side of the building?
It's
It's like the wind, I think.
Yeah.
I can see the drops.
The rain, okay. So, for the packet next month, we'll have some of the samples of the artwork she used, but it was modeled after like a dating app. And it was like a lonely storm drain looks for like an adopter and it was just. I don't know, she had some very clever ways to describe it. It was very cute. Yeah, right, yeah. And I think she actually took photos of storm drains around town and used the actual, like, I remember one of the names was Healy, like, this was on Healy. It was cute.
I'm curious if Brad has any kind of mapping of like. All of these. Outfalls, like which storm drains go to which outfall.
Yes,
Part of the map
on the map, you
Yeah.
can track the path to the lake.
Yeah, and the map
I mean, I see the
has
outfall
layers where you
stars.
can do like your watershed, and you can like actually learn like which watershed you're a part of and where all the water should ultimately flows to. It's really educational, and is that it with the green lines, maybe, I don't know.
Lines show you the dream.
Oh, okay, and then the yellow is the watershed.
So may I ask, I might have missed this, but why is it that the county is considering eliminating this program?
Why are they?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I only have heard that they might be eliminating it, keeping this leaf-free streets intact, but just the tracking of who's adopting storm drain is probably just so labor intensive, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is still, I mean, I think getting leaves out of the street is really the message of it all. You don't necessarily need to adopt a storm drain in order to just help get leaves out of the street, right? So I see why they want to do that. If they do. But it is nice to have that measurable storm drain adoption number. That's very easy.
Yeah, I pulled up the map here so we can all look together. I think last year,
I've included in the packet, our list of activities last year and strategies. There was lots of talk about focusing more on watersheds. There was talk of like a kickoff party for
Yeah.
everyone who's adopted a storm drain. You know, we didn't get to those points, but we kind of just stuck with the typical campaigns with the new graphics that Sarah made, that I think we can get a lot of mileage out of those, so we can keep using them this year.
Get all those drains on the drive.
So we have.
Should
we
have like
an
a
email
business
Yeah,
adoption,
yeah,
right?
database for
yeah.
everyone who's
Campaign.
adopted a dream.
Yeah.
So that's a really good tool if we wanna incentivize getting those little compost bins in front of the
Yeah,
drains
yes.
they're using.
That is a nice little aspect of it, you know, and it's very visible when you're walking around, you see all those little
Right.
compost.
And when you see that, then anyone
you know.
walking by
Yeah.
could lend
And
a
maybe-
hand right then and
Right,
there.
and maybe the sign could just be lend a hand, cause it's what it says, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
may your helping
yeah.
hand, like scoop it up and put it in this bin if you're walking by.
So maybe like a little pilot project for 10 of these.
Yeah.
First 10.
Yeah, the thing, I mean, I struggle with, is it really just keep the leaves out of the street? Is that really the only thing that matters?
Or
Or is it, because you could have your street full of leaves and yet the storm drains are adopted. You're still putting phosphorus into the water because that's running through all the leaves on its way to your
Well,
cleans.
when
Storm
when
drain.
I've talked to Brad, he says it's not really so much. He doesn't want people doing it without permission, because he feels that defeats the point of the program. Like
Oh,
if
he
someone,
wants people signing.
yeah, he
yeah.
doesn't want me putting it on someone's lawn who just
Right.
happens to be next to.
Right.
So it's more a public relations thing to get people
Mhm.
conscious about the phosphorus
Mhm.
coming in the lake.
Right,
But the actual, how much it actually helps the lake itself, I thought wasn't the real point, from what he told me.
it does help, but it might not be like,
It's not really gonna move the needle as far as the
Yeah.
lakes are concerned.
I mean, every little drop, I suppose, gets.
Right.
Yeah, I know,
It's not
yeah,
gonna hurt, but.
Yeah.
So. I don't know,
but the awareness of it, yeah, like
Right.
this, whatever goes down this drain goes directly to the lake.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff you could do. You could get community media folks to make a fun little video about how storm drains work, you know, you could get Jeff Johnson, you could, when he cleans out the storm drains periodically and
Yeah, we
show
could
how
talk
that
about
works, you
that.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
we've had all these talks, but it
Yeah.
just doesn't,
we talked about that.
Yeah.
Going to one of the outfalls.
yeah,
Finding the weirdest stuff.
yeah,
Because
when did we
that's
find
our-
this out all this week?
Yeah, profile.
Yeah,
Well, and Teresa, to your point about the water flowing through the leaves versus, you know, when it goes into the drain like
Yeah.
with leaves. it's when it sits with the water is when you get the most leaching. It's not necessarily when you
Oh,
have that
okay.
rush of water, so
Good point.
it is actually when the leaves are entering
Okay,
into the drains and then they're ponding and
okay,
the breakdown of those is when
Okay.
you get the trouble.
Oh, good point.
all right. All right, so what I'm hearing is learn whether the county is going with their program or not. If they are abandoning their program, let's keep ours going. If they are not giving up their program, well, we'd have to, either way, we'll talk with Brad and see what he would really prefer to do. The nice thing about going with them is you get just this automatic, tap
Yeah.
into all their materials and everything. Yeah, we'll talk about that next time.
And metrics. And there was a priority to find a way to build track cleanings, sounded like.
Yeah. Or if we wanna target the 58 or so that have applied, see what we could do. Encourage them to be more active or collaborate or make suggestions.
Mhm.
Use them as a feedback loop of some kind.
Do an art project where everybody paints their drain.
Yeah,
It's a lot of stuff.
yeah.
We do have the new storm drain mural.
Oh, on Bridge
Seen
Street,
that, yeah.
yeah. But we can, have kids color their storm drains. Make it a kind of community event.
Be nice if we could have some storm drains that have like the street around them painted and the area needed to keep clean. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
something
yeah.
like
Kinda
in this
circle.
area, you should, all the leaves and debris should be clean,
Mhm,
as an example.
I like it.
With chalk or something.
Oh,
Alright,
I just-
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm coming at this with limited knowledge around the engineering, but I'm just curious about like installing filtration systems to keep phosphorus and other damaging things out. Is that something we've looked into? I'm sure it's a lot of money and maybe it would require like grant funding or something.
What was your question?
Installing filters systems.
Oh, I don't know if that's happened, but it's not a question. It wouldn't be a project of this committee.
Yeah, my understanding is that the storm drains do have some kind of catch basin that gets cleaned out on a semi-regularly basis. But with leaves and phosphorus, it's as water runs over the leaves, it creates like a T essentially, and the nutrients just leach out, so. It's really about preventing them from even ever coming in contact with the water. So keeping leaves
Right.
out, keeping the leaves out of the storm drain.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It seems like that's such a big challenge that like if there was a filter put in place over a storm drain, it looks like there are products like that out
Mhm.
there, but I have really limited knowledge. It's just a thought.
You're talking some kind of like leaf guard that allows the water to go through, but not through leaves, is that
Right.
what you?
Or think about like,
Ash.
yeah, like how carbon can like filter pollutants, that kind of thing. I don't know a lot about these products, but they are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, send me some links and I'll talk to Brad about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a feeling you would still get the pooling that Ashley was referring to.
Or you claw.
Right, or you the clog, which would create the puddle, which would create the T, which, yeah.
But I think what you're talking about, Jamie, is it's filtering the water itself before it enters the drain.
Yes.
That-
Like
that is what I
to
meant.
capture the T sediment.
There we go.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Well, I'll poke around and send something to you, Thor, if I find anything. worthwhile.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I'm reminded in this moment, like, there is no shortage of amazing ideas and things we could do. But there's just a shortage of, like, we don't have a sustainability person on committees, on city's payroll. Right, so all we have are volunteers to do all these things. And so we always have to be thinking about that and ways to move the needle without a budget. but stormwater, storm drains and stormwater management is linked to funding. So Brad is very passionate about it, so he'll know the answer when we check in with him, he'll know the answer of their filter systems there. All right. I'm just gonna move on to item 6B, discussion on possible amendments to chapter 935-8 of the Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances regarding snow and ice removal from sidewalks. The reason this is on the agenda tonight is because, thinking ahead to our winter campaign, Don't Be Salty, this came up last year as a possible strategy. And that strategy would be to look at what Madison has done in relation to their ordinances and see if we wanted to do something. And I know you'll remember we've had this conversation before. So the question really before the committee is there an appetite to take this on? What are the pros and cons? Should we do it?
So the idea is to move away from this kind of obligation and therefore reduce salt load, is that what you're?
So I've included our ordinance here just as a baseline. We don't need to read it, but there's, you know, there's an obligation to clear snow and ice from the sidewalk. There's nothing about salt really.
It does say up in that first paragraph, it says use salt, ashes.
Yeah. If
So
necessary.
it's encouraged to use.
Right, so you using that to clear the snow and ice, but then what happens to the salt? And what's an appropriate amount of salt? So I've also included Madison 2 years ago, they went through this process and they updated their ordinance. To require. Let's see, it's right in these first few lines here.
Reasonable quality quantities of salt may be used.
Only to the extent necessary to treat the ice.
Yeah.
Salt and other chemical melting agents shall not unreasonably accumulate on the sidewalk following ice melt or snow removal. Excess salt and other lawful chemical melting agents shall be removed following ice melt or snow removal. So essentially, use the right amount of salt. Once it's done its job, sweep it up.
Whatever.
Yeah, so Madison's implemented a fine. I'd have to reach out to their code enforcement department to see how often this gets enforced and if they're actually implementing fines. I think it's more of an education opportunity. You leave a flyer in the mailbox or on the door of the offending property owner, just letting them know, hey, here's why we care about salts, here's what the damage it causes to infrastructure in the lakes. It should be removed after you've used it.
Yeah, I mean. That there, it's like use a reasonable amount and if it's unreasonable, we're gonna fine you, and it's so subjective that I can't imagine they've ever given anyone a ticket for that. So what are we asking you to talk about? I mean, do we just outlaw it and say that'd be $50 fine if we see salt on your driveway? Is that where?
So the discussion is if we want to pursue similar code amendments as an education opportunity, right? I think would need to bake some kind of fine into it, whether or not that gets enforced. Is a different discussion, but it's more of a campaign to educate the public on excess salt.
Ashley and I have seen egregious
Oh my
amounts of
gosh.
salt
Yeah.
in our canvas.
We
What's
have
that?
gone door to door.
Especially now that you're so tuned into it.
Yes, we've seen an obscene amounts of salt.
Yeah.
At a minimum, oh, sorry,
No, you go ahead.
Like
I was.
piles of salt.
Yes.
Yeah.
At a minimum, I think. It seems like because we are a lakefront community, we should at least amend the language, even if it doesn't include a fine. To not encourage the use of salt and in fact encourage other more environmentally friendly uses of, sand and shovel like we have in all of our flyers and all of our sustainability language so that they're congruent.
I mean, it just strikes me as if we're trying to reduce salt, right? Carrots, you got sticks, you got education.
Right.
Changing the language from what Madison had to whatever they just did there. I can't imagine anyone is looking up the city ordinance about what they use salt and then has ever, that accomplished nothing. So you can do that, I just don't think I certainly don't know the city ordinances about salt here in Monona. I used salt and I try not to, so I don't think that's impactful.
Mhm.
So I think it's either just educate and just try a campaign of education, which I think you guys have done before. And, make that more local. Or change the ordinance to something that's actually policed
Yeah.
and is impactful and I don't know if we can go that far, but
I don't think
that
we have
that
the
doesn't.
resources to enforce it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
would
like a
allow
community enforcement.
targeted education. I would say, we get a couple calls every year about egregious salt use, and if it's on private sidewalk, then. Or on private property, then there's nothing we really can do about it. Just say,
Currently.
Yeah,
So we do have Saltwise as a resource, and they do have a number that you can, if you're a concerned person and you notice
Mm-hmm.
a huge amount of salt, that then you can call that number and they will come and pay a visit to the
Mm.
property and see if they can educate.
Really?
And yeah, so it's kind of like a salt helpline.
Wow, but they actually do a site visit after that.
They say that they will.
Wow.
So I do agree that I think it would be beneficial if we could somehow show progress, in some way, how we could be measuring outcomes of our efforts.
Impossible, I
It,
know,
it does seem we've been stymied so far.
yeah,
We had 10
Yeah.
citizens rat out their neighbors
Right.
and get $500 fine. I mean, but that's kind of like what you're getting at, which would be something, I mean, it would
yeah,
be,
yeah.
it'd be targeted education. as you put
The
it.
thing is, we have so many businesses along Monona Drive that use other outside companies.
Yeah,
to salt for
yeah.
them. Having something in ordinance can be something that we can point for those companies saying, this is a Monona ordinance, you need to make sure that you're using these other practices because.
Compliance with,
Right.
could be an issue for a contractor.
I mean, I don't know the science here really. Is sand better or worse? What are the schools, the city municipal buildings do? Are they salting the city hall parking lot and the schools? I mean.
I
would
think
anyone-
they're just salting, but at a much less, like, they don't use as much, right?
Yeah, they've been all
Recalibrated.
certified so that
Yeah,
they do
so they-
things according to best practices.
So all their equipment is calibrated, so it only pushes out just a teeny tiny little amount.
Or they'll
Yeah.
brine before a
Like
storm.
one crystal for every, like, what was it that we learned about how to scatter the salt?
One
one cup
20 ounce
does
cup covered
20
sidewalk
squares, 20
squares.
sidewalk squares with one cup. Yeah,
Yeah, so salt is, it's only effective to a certain temperature. Below that temperature, it doesn't actually melt the ice. So it can provide traction then, so can sand. There's other chemicals you can get for, the right temperature. The city Department of Public Works, all the snowplow operators are Saltwise certified. It's a voluntary training
they
program.
only salt on hills and intersections.
Yeah.
They don't salt on any other streets in Monona. So they're already using a significantly less amount.
Yeah,
Just really residents and businesses,
Yeah, we've
right?
optimized salt use for
Mhm.
Municipal
for
standards.
streets, yeah.
Yeah,
I think something to be considering is also the fact that, it takes 20 instances of someone seeing something or learning about something for it to really stick.
yeah,
And I think a lot of our programs, we think about one season versus,
yep.
1 year at a time, but this is, this and the bee and butterfly stuff and
It's
the leaf
starting
free
to
streets, it's like we need
accumulate, yeah.
to be, in my perspective, we need to be continually putting effort into this year over year, and then maybe in 5 years, everybody's like, oh yeah.
I've adopted a storm drain,
Don't be salty.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
Just
that
the
constant
best.
education of citizens that I think that we will get to a certain point, but I think saying, like this
Yeah.
year we will and this year we won't, is not super sustainable for the sustainability
Yeah,
effort that
right,
we're trying
right.
to push.
I think the ordinance change has merit, it's sort of like it states our values as a community. Is it enforced? Probably not. Does it stop behavior? Probably not, right? But it's good to have it. But this is brilliant, this sticker. It's funny. It's light, people love it, it's beautiful, it just gets people laughing, it says everything, it drives home the point. I think we should have like stocking caps for the winter. Should get the seniors to knit us up some caps, wear them around. Maybe we just need some, like some really like good natured, carrot and stick, like the severe carrot type of outreach.
And we had talked about in the past, especially with the businesses participating, we had gone around and done flyers and
Yeah.
window decals
Yeah.
about highlighting businesses that are doing good salt practices.
Yep.
In the newsletter and
Yeah.
other things like that.
Shaming work better.
Shaming, salt
Quietly.
shaming.
So how many years have you guys been doing
2 winters?
We've
two
done
winters? Okay,
Yeah, so it
so
takes
if
a
we
few
put in some
winters.
time,
It
right?
takes a few
People
seasons.
know you by now, they recognize, go
You
the
think
salt
so?
lady.
Oh, those
Yeah.
women.
Yeah, here they are.
Oh, well, I'm just thinking, the question is whether or not to go ahead with an ordinance, and I feel like it's not gonna take us as long to draft something as it did the natural law one, right?
True.
Yeah, this
We've
could
got
be
the
one
language
sentence.
right in there. But I think if we do wanna do that, we have to tie it to recommitting to an education campaign.
Yeah.
And besides you going door to door, what else can we do to get the message out? And
Yeah,
and I'm thinking Vespa is probably the one-stop shop
Yeah.
for getting to businesses in Monona. And we have to target them. And just get them on board and just explain why we're doing this, what it really means.
Absolutely.
We're not gonna police, go up and down Monona Drive looking for salt. But we are gonna maybe once, when there's a real egregious issue, we might use
Yeah.
this tool.
when the entire sidewalk square is blue.
Right,
from
when it's
salt.
When we
like
see
so
piles
painfully
of-
obvious
Yeah,
Salt
this
sitting in
guy-
the parking lot.
Right.
is over the line. Then we use the ordinance, and that in itself will be an educational opportunity.
Yeah.
So I like the idea, but I think we have to go slow with the ordinance. We can't just pass it and hope everyone understands what we're doing. We really have to make sure that we're covering all our bases, getting people totally informed about what it is we think this is gonna be like. And hoping that there isn't a human outcry, but I'm sure there'll be people complaining, but that's the opportunity you have for a conversation.
So the ordinance is really just a backup. Like we lead with education and the
yeah.
ordinance is there if we ever need it, but it's also a
It
statement of
opens the
values.
conversation,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
when people are arguing with you, that's your opportunity to
Yeah.
kind of well, wait a minute. That's not really what we're doing.
The materials that these two created, there was the bookmark that had just such the great, like it only takes 1 cup of salt, just 1 teaspoon pollutes 5 gallons. It was just really eye-popping, I thought. So just to get those out there, find out how many we have on hand.
I still have a bunch.
So
that I can
we're
bring back.
spending that $1,200 like that, right? Get more stickers, get more bookmarks.
So I like the idea of the ordinance, but I think we have to make sure we're.
That education, yeah. And MESBA, working with MESBA is big.
Right,
Yeah, because they've got that wonderful bi-weekly, or every other week newsletter that they put out.
yeah, and they have those meetings, what are they,
Yeah.
quarterly or something?
Yeah,
So do we need to vote on our,
I don't think so, not at this point. Just get everybody thinking about, this coming down the pike and we want to work on it. And I guess I was also wondering, Kristen and Ashley, what's your appetite for continuing on in this? Are you ready to move to something else? Are you ready to, should we bring on other people, into the committee, bring in other citizens? If you know people, we've got folks that apply to be on the committee, but they just aren't on the committee because we're at our maximum level. We could definitely bring in folks to help out with this, or if you think that that's what's needed. I think we've got the materials created, it's just
Yeah.
getting them out,
Yeah.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground, yeah.
With that piece,
Yeah.
I really like the idea of expanding our outreach in terms of engaging the educational piece. I think, if we can loop in maybe the high school or even, I go back to MG20.
Right, right,
Get these
right.
willing students who might be doing more than just PSAs, and I don't know what the more is, but I'm just thinking we have a lot, those are very powerful resources.
They are.
Like you said, Ms. and I just am thinking, brainstorming, got off a plane last night from a visit home in California, went through a cute little town that was very much bragging up their beautiful views of the hills and the mountains. And they were using, you can see banners that hang from the light posts going down and
Yeah.
drag. I was just thinking of like, we're Tree City.
Yeah.
We love our lakes.
Right.
We love our, you know what I mean? Like, we
Yeah.
have, I don't know, some taglines that just boast on what it is that makes Monona special, that businesses might like to help kind of promote to bring people here. Why would you, our beautiful lake shore, or tying it somehow to the efforts that we're trying to promote about salt wise behaviors.
Right.
And clean, leaf-free sewers and all of
Right.
it, so.
Yeah.
Like you and I talked about this summer, like everything really ties into the lakes, right? The pollinator habitat
Yes.
ties into, the way that you use your property, the leaves, salt, it's all about the lakes, right? Yeah.
Let's just say we adopted the Madison language as it was in the $50 fines. Who would get such a citation book and where would the funds go? Could we, a little band of people solve our budgetary problem?
Boy,
Are you volunteering?
I mean, that'd be a fun Saturday.
If you could get like a sheriff's badge, that I would do it. That'd be nice, that would-
You get a lot of cash walking up and down Monona Drive.
The next door Monona site would be lit
It
up.
would.
Oh, there'd be-
There's a very tall man walking around with a sheriff's badge.
You're so well suited.
Oh, gosh.
Madison does do education before they start levying fines. I don't know what that education
Oh.
looks like, probably flyers or.
Imagine.
let it off with a warning for the.
Yeah, a warning.
Or do you remember how much like residential flyers are? I know we've talked about that in the past too.
Yeah, I don't know, gotta be pretty cheap, I imagine, to order them in bulk,
Yeah.
1,000 at a time,
Like to go out with the tax.
Like mailers, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
It's like $3,000 to get a flyer out to every house in Monona.
Really?
Is it? I don't know.
yeah, when
Unless-
you're doing
Never
through
used
USPS and they're just being mailed out individually, yes. If we can couple them with something else
That's already going out.
that's already going out. There's an opportunity for savings.
Like the senior center's newsletter that already goes out, I mean, like stuff like that.
You could have a piece in there, yeah.
Like
think
if
it would be a
UNESCO puts
separate
out
piece, would it?
something, or if,
Does that go to every household?
No, it goes to the members.
do you have to
of the
subscribe?
friends.
Yeah, okay.
So there's like 450 members.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, so this was on the agenda today because, we've learned it can be
Yeah.
a long process.
Mhm.
And if we want it to be live in time for education
Mhm.
prior to when folks are salting the
Mhm.
sidewalk,
Yeah.
it has to be moving fairly
Like to start it
quickly.
now,
Right,
yeah.
like, probably want it live by November.
Yeah.
So we need it to pass through sustainability, at the latest, probably our October meeting.
And then it goes to council, and then it takes a certain number of days before it's able to be
Yeah, yeah.
enforced. It's not gonna be enforced, it's just. Right, I mean.
Well, you do want the threat of it as a,
It's
get
more of
people's
a
attention.
marketing,
they have to update the fee schedule.
story, yeah.
What is the barrier from it passing sustainability today?
We could vote, we could agree to have
Adopt that
or
language.
update the
Yeah.
ordinance.
To
yeah.
start working,
Yeah.
I would need to work with code enforcement just to make sure that enforcement is feasible, how that would work, work with the attorney to draft the language and have him review that. Make sure, code enforcement is under the planning department, so make sure planning director's okay with it. There might be public works involvement here as well. I would wager that it would have to get Public Works Committee approval as well, because it's a policy affecting city sidewalk, and that's all under Public Works domain.
Ample lead time seems
Yeah,
imperative.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how it's gonna take a while.
Right,
You
so
just
like-
said one of the barriers though was us, can we remove our barrier?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah, no, we would need to make a recommendation on, recommend certain language, so I'd have to come with a draft to the committee and. Then we would, so a potential timeline could be, October. Let's see, so Public Works Committee meets on the first Wednesday of the month, so they meet before us.
So can you have this done in like next week?
Actually, I was gonna say, it could be, a October Sustainability Committee approval, November Public Works Committee approval, and then November for city council as well, or yeah, if we can go fast, potentially September for,
We
yeah.
have a paragraph of nicely typed up language
That we could just lift, yeah, plagiarize,
and
yeah.
approve today.
Well, no, you're not comfortable with
I
that?
would be comfortable with that,
Okay.
yeah, I'd be more comfortable.
I think we'd have to talk with our fellow council members too, right? To see if this would be something that they could support.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the work you do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't wanna introduce it to the council, right? That's your,
Right, yeah.
until they've
You don't bring
actually.
it unless you know you got the votes, right, exactly. So I think it would be
There
fine.
might be.
Yeah.
Time allotted for that too.
If you frame it as stating values, I'd stick
Yes.
with me. I think
Yeah,
that
I agree.
is important.
And that was sort of like with the natural law. We just realized that we had some very outdated language on the books that we just wanted to bring up to speed. And that's really what this is, don't encourage so much salt use, just at least change that little piece. Yeah.
Well, let's remember that in the lead time considerations too, we will want to update the website. We will, because then when we're putting out, a newsletter article or any other, stories, we're going to want to link to those artifacts, and we want to make sure that we have time to, all the approvals have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm still gonna look into the
the.
patch.
I want it on a little cup that I can spread my.
Oh, yeah,
Salt.
your salt cup. Yeah. I like it. We're at the end of the agenda, guys. Oh, number 7, diversity, equity, inclusion discussion items, any projects, programs, policies, or budget considerations that anybody would like to talk about. Mhm.
We talked about the tree purchasing.
We did.
From that perspective.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll share that CarpC tool. It's a mapping tool. You can break it down by the census tracts.
Yeah.
And it will prioritize based on some metrics that you select, including income, race, existing tree canopy. So you can start to explore that on your own time.
Awesome, thank you.
And I think since we last met, did council approve the DEI implementation plan? Between our
We
sustainability,
accepted
we accepted it
Yeah.
between our last sustainability committee. Yeah, so now we've got a formal document that outlines some actionable next steps that the city will take. Related to housing, transportation, communication, and just general community capacity building. It's very exciting. It's good stuff.
It's on the web.
It should be, or at least I'm. All right, just in time to hit the outdoors.
I know, we
Is
gotta talk
there-
for another 5 minutes.
Is there a motion?
I've got one up
Oh.
to number 8, actually. So we did receive an opportunity for another sustainability event in
That's right,
2025 through Clean Sweep. This is NAM Swap, the Stormwater Partnership brought this to us. So Clean Sweep is a program through the Dane County landfill, I think, where residents can bring hazardous materials to have it disposed of properly. It normally costs $15 to go and drop off the materials, but Mam Swap and Clean Sweep they've started a program to subsidize that. If the city also buys in which case, everyone chips in $5 per ticket essentially. So that residents only have to pay $5. I think Mam Swap's contributing $5, the city would contribute $5, so then the resident would be able to dispose of their waste for $5 instead of $15. So we're exploring that opportunity, maybe putting a cap on it, 100 tickets or so, and testing that out next year. It's gonna be a $500 line item, so I think come out of sustainability budget, so it would probably be built into our operating budget request for 2025.
So we would not be using this year's funds for
Right.
next year, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah, could be a great opportunity
Yeah,
and, some outreach around that from us, some advertising, but I don't think any, staffing would be required for the actual event. It's just selling tickets and go redeem their tickets at the landfill.
and then Thor, did you want to mention something about Soul Smart and the council, future council?
Oh,
meetings?
yes, yeah, so Soul Smart, I met with the organization today, or I guess he'll be our rep, our technical assistance rep through Soul Smart. And it was a great opportunity to ask him questions and learn about what the process will actually look like once we commit. So we just have to submit our letter of support. And that'll be on the agenda at the August 19th city council meeting as well, along with a resolution to commit to Soul Smart. And then from there, our technical assistance rep will do a full zoning code review and give us a 10-page report on all the red flags in there that are barriers to implementing solar. And recommend solutions, and then we'll meet and kind of draft a plan and draft our specific goal for what we want to achieve out of Soul Smart. So that'll be moving forward pretty soon, and I think we'll kind of become a regular agenda item once we have committed.
Great.
So we've already voted to support it.
Yeah, so that's just going to council.
And then another thing under committee or staff reports was just, I think we could probably just share that Rick's been doing a lot of work with the Next Trex recycling program that Chris brought to your attention. It's the soft plastic bag collection and recycling, and you found a really jazzed up volunteer that is interested in helping out.
Is it you?
She's a
No.
Lions Club member, and
Yeah.
we'll be meeting with her when you get back when I get back from vacation. We'll be meeting with her to see
Okay,
what
you
she
guys
can.
have proposed some dates. right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's wonderful that you found somebody that's really excited
Yeah.
about maybe taking that on.
Yeah, it's kind of a Lions Club thing. I think they're the ones who sponsored it in McFarland, and I've heard about Verona, so there's a pretty active Lions group. This one is not as big. I think they lost a lot of their membership when they had to move from being a Lions Club to a Lions Club. The national charter, so they couldn't be a Lions Club anymore. So they lost a lot of members because it was mostly females and they didn't like the change of the name, something like that. I'm not sure. Anyway, she's found someone else who's very interested,
Oh,
so
that's great.
I think they'll do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. We may have to do some publicity, but the actual bag collection itself, they'd be willing to pick it up on a regular basis, I think. We need to figure out where some of these containers will go, but that's something I think Julie, who's I've been talking to, has had a lot of good ideas about, so. Those are the two, that's the critical juncture where we can find some place to put these collection boxes. So I don't think it's insurmountable, but we still have to kind of put it up.
So our next meeting is September 5th.
Yep.
Gosh, that
But-
just seems like so far away.
Yeah, I'll be sending out a doodle poll for alternative dates because I'll be on
Yeah.
vacation during that time.
I would I would be in favor of meeting earlier, just so we can pass that ordinance language. And just keep moving forward on some of these projects. I don't know if that would be of interest to anyone, maybe like the last week in August,
Oh,
but I don't,
Yeah,
it's
it's
in
on the
August.
second week of September.
okay,
Okay,
So
yeah,
already we're
I'll send out
getting-
a poll, yep, we'll,
okay, sweet,
yeah,
That
Sweet,
last
sweet,
week
sweet.
in August is like complete out to me.
all right.
that's also the best time to meet for alternative dates because, you know, if there's like a fifth day in the week, there's no committee meetings that day.
Oh, like that.
Okay,
Bonus week.
Yeah, exactly.
now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Adjourned by Rebecca, seconded by Kristen, all in favor. Motion passes. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, good to see you all.
See ya. Jamie, I didn't get to meet